I mean, I, as someone who didn't have two moms, I don't know if I necessarily would say. I mean, me. It would like me saying, I'm glad I have, a mom and a dad. I mean, I'm glad I have. I'm glad I do have my mom and my dad, but I don't know if it's different from saying I'm glad I have, one of each gender, which is what this is kind of implying a little bit. I'm glad I have two moms. I don't know. I wish I had a dad like yours. I don't know if I would say that either. You know? I don't think I would say anything else. I don't think I would have said anything else. Your thoughts drifted away from Derek. I don't know if I would have necessarily thought about it that much if I had two moms. Which is why I'm very curious how my kids will think about it when they're a little bit older, about having two dads. I don't know. Maybe that's something I'm going to ask them someday. I am curious. Your thoughts drifted away from Derek and even from you. They floated across the condo, out the window, and off into the vast summer sky. As the silence settled between you, Derek plucked at his shoelaces and chewed on the inside of his cheek uncomfortably. When you felt the need to fix everything or make it all better, it was a major hitch when it was not your problem to solve. The air conditioner whirred in the background. Through your fuzzy feeling mind's eye, you could picture your moms and your big sister. Then your brain and your body suddenly snapped together in full focus. Wait, what about Elizabeth? The mention of her name got the same instant reaction from Derek that you had just experienced. His eyebrows lifted and his mouth opened soundlessly in a small O. She acts like she's over everything, but I think I remember. Back when we were little kids, she would get mad on Father's Day. Maybe that's why she was so aggressive yesterday. She didn't have friends who were coming over or anything, and Mom's had work, and now I'm gone too. Derek looked hard at the front door. But was he expecting her to walk through it, or was he planning on running over to Sunset Bird to check? You had no idea. Shoot, I thought there might have been a chance of that. I'd worried you. She was totally alone. You were so upset you were stuck out here. It was a horrible realization you abandoned your sister. You tried to consider the possibilities as best you could with what you knew. You shrugged it off. It was her problem. If there even was a problem. I don't think I would have felt like that. I don't know if I would have been also like 100% worried about her too much. You tried to consider the possibilities as best you could with what you knew. Hey, we could call her. I'll do it if you feel weird about it. I guess I'll call her. If you want to call her, you can, but I'm not. You'd actually do that? You gave us light nod. I'll say, I guess I'll call her. Cool. Derek unfurled himself, got off the floor, and trotted into the hallway with purpose. Mounted right where the living room narrowed to the hallway, set against the front wall, was an off-white telephone. The phone at your house was wireless. Derek's had an elastic loop line that kept the receiver from going more than a couple feet away from its base. Visions of Nicholas launching a cordless phone into the air purely for his own entertainment made their way across your mind. The option the Suarezes went with was the one most practical for their family. Your sibling, however, would throw a fit if she couldn't chat with her gal pals in private. Elizabeth, you wonder what she was thinking about right now. I have no clue. I don't even know if this is even going to bother her or not. Like, if this bothers her. But you wouldn't have to imagine for longer. Derek didn't waste any time taking the receiver off the hook and offering it to you. There had been many times in the past Derek used that very device to call your house, so the two of you could chat about your lives and make plans and whatever else. You'd literally ended up on the other side of things, poised to give the Angel line a ring from the Suarez condo. You took it from Derek and punched in the number. You couldn't remember the number offhand, but it had written down in your bag. I think this is before cell phones, so I would have remembered my own phone number. I don't even remember my husband's phone number by heart right now because I never had to really dial it. Or any of my parents' cell numbers or my brother's cell numbers. I don't know any of their numbers by heart at all. But you froze. You couldn't remember the number and had no way to check. Derek, I don't remember my house. I don't remember it. My house number. No, I'll punch in the number. That's a weird choice. When you crossed the cool speaker against the side of your face, you heard the high-pitched dial tone playing on repeat. It rang and rang, waiting for one specific person miles away to answer its call. Finally, she did. Hello? Your sister's unmistakable voice filtered through the phone. The impatient note in her voice was just as recognizable. She didn't even know who it was and already sounded uninterested. Hello, Elizabeth. Guess who it is? Apparently her apathetic approach was being generous because once she did find out who it was, she cranked the attitude up to outright annoyance.
What?
Hark, what do you want? You were facing the wall, but in your peripheral view, you could make out Derek glancing with wide eyes. The conversation had actually started. That was all the insight he had in the situation. I don't need anything. Oh, just caught in the chat. Well, do you need anything? How are you today, Elizabeth? You had no idea what to say. You panicked and hung up. I'm gonna say, well, do you need anything? No, what on earth is wrong with you? You're having a bad day, right? Excuse me? Listen, Hark, unless the police, firefighters, and ambulance or our moms are involved in whatever it is you're doing, tell me when you get back. You sputtered to get out anything that might reach her, but it was in vain. The line clicked dead without a goodbye. I mean, I tried. You kept staring at the phone pointlessly. You couldn't move to look at Derek, but your hand holding the receiver lifelessly dropped to your side. Hark, what happened? She hung up. If it were me, I'd be like, oh, she hung up. Well, it's not my problem right now. Like, she doesn't want to talk to me, and, I'm not going to call her back, because that's probably just going to make her angrier, so I probably wouldn't even let it bother me. I feel like she doesn't want to talk to me, so I guess I'll just talk to her when I get home. I would not let that spoil my day, honestly. Like, would I feel bad for her if that really was, like, the issue she was having? Yes, if that honestly was an issue for her. I have no idea if that's why she's cranky right now. I have no clue. Maybe it's something completely different. Just like, Derek jumped into conclusions as well. So I don't know. Is this Derek also jumping to conclusions and talking me into seeing something that isn't actually there? I don't know. I have no idea. But if Elizabeth doesn't want to talk to me, it's really not going to help matters me feeling bad or guilty about it. It's not going to help. So I probably would just not let it bother me. Despite the near single-digit amount of seconds your conversation lasted for, Elizabeth's frustrated tone had come through loud and clear. A crease began to form in your forehead. Your sister wasn't happy, and you couldn't shake the horrible feeling that it wasn't just her usual bad attitude. The hall felt cramped, and you were suddenly uncomfortable being surrounded by these walls. I honestly would not have let it bother me, honestly. Because, there's nothing I can do short of going home right now, which I think is... that I feel like could be a little overkill, or I feel like that could be overreacting. I don't know. Derek watched you helplessly, his fingers tensed, clenching and splaying again. A moment passed, then he let out a heavy breath. He wasn't powerless anymore.
Got a plan.
I have a plan. Do you do? You do? You raised your eyebrow. The promise of a possibility gave you enough of a push to move your hand as well and place the receiver back onto the base. Derek sprinted to the living room area and into his bedroom. The clatter of drawers opening and papers flying came through his open door. You slowly stepped to the edge of the hall to try to glimpse what was happening on the other side of the condo. He soon came bounding out again, clearly successful at something. Derek tossed a stack of colorful folded pamphlets across the surface of the coffee table. You jogged over to meet him there. You couldn't tell what they were for from a distance. Let's bring the party to Elizabeth. These are bus schedules and stuff. I've only got to look at what the times are and we can leave. Without telling our parents? I don't think that's a good idea. How did you think of that so fast? That's amazing. Why do you have those? What? You were stunned into silence. I'm like, what? You want us to just leave? You want us to leave on Father's Day? What about your father? You're just gonna leave on Father's Day? Your family on Father's Day? That I think is a little too much. Because it's like, yes, it stinks if Elizabeth is sad on Father's Day, but she's not a father. So I would feel worse leaving poor Mr. Suarez, like having us leave poor Mr. Suarez on Father's Day than leaving Elizabeth alone on Father's Day. You know what I'm saying? I feel like... that's just me. I mean, I know I'm biased because at the moment I'm not a big fan of Elizabeth. I know I'm biased, and part of that's probably because I'm an older sibling and I never had an older sibling, and so probably me and Elizabeth are butting heads because I am an older sibling in real life and she is an older sibling, and I'm like not a fan of her attitude from one older sibling to another older sibling. So, granted, I know I'm partial, but we're gonna see. I'm gonna say, what? He chuckled mischievously. Do I get a choice in this? It's good to be prepared. And I wonder about this kind of thing before. I can't drive, but what if there was an accident or other emergency or whatever and I needed to be someplace right away? I already knew a lot of public transportation stuff because of that. Derek began to shuffle the papers around and he flashed you a bright grin. Do I get a say in this? Do I get to have a say? But I didn't think I'd be pulling this out so that I could go see Elizabeth, of all people. I wasn't even thinking that either. I wasn't even thinking that even now. I'm still not thinking of that. Derek laughed lightheartedly over the joke. The words didn't feel very breezy to you. It's Father's Day. Why are we leaving your dad on Father's Day? That was because if he was honest, it wasn't about your sister. He'd spent time studying ways to get the Sunset Bird for his friends, for Cove, and for you. With you and him living away from each other and not going to the same school, sometimes it seemed like maybe you stopped being a piece of his life once he left your town. This proved you definitely didn't disappear before Derek. This proved you definitely didn't disappear for Derek. He cared about you even when you weren't there, and you could count on even more than you had known. While you were stuck inside your own head, Derek had his nose in the brochures. He pressed his palms on the table, fervently scanned the timetables, and rambled more about his scheme. This isn't a direct line to Sunset Bird. It's kind of a small place. We can take a bus to a real station and get on a smaller shuttle for tourists. Derek's hands lifted from and then hit the smooth surface under him, making a solid smack noise. He was done searching. His gaze flicked up to your face. Is that okay? Yeah, are we seriously gonna do this? Thanks, Derek. That's good enough. You balled your hands into fists and nodded. You blinked in disbelief. There's no, saying no. There's no saying no. The game is railroading us to go and rescue Elizabeth. And I guess, to be fair, the chapter is called Siblings, to be fair. So it has a pretty cool twist. This whole time, I assumed siblings meant Derek's siblings, which, yes, Derek's siblings are in this one. But then, of course, we have Elizabeth as our sibling. So, okay, I get it. Now I understand fully the title of this moment. But I'm going to say, are we seriously going to do this? I'm as serious as you are. I really was not serious about doing this. So, by what you just said, you're not serious either. You're not serious. I don't think we're matching up here, Derek. Okay, so maybe Derek is influencing me. Maybe Derek is influencing me to be a better younger sibling. His absolute conviction was enough to convince you. You nodded. We're being railroaded. This probably is the most railroaded, for me, the most railroaded moment that I've had with this game. But you know what? I don't have what can I do? I don't have a choice. We're going back and leaving his dad on Father's Day. Okay. We can leave a note for Mom about what happened, or Derek packed up his pamphlets, sticking them in the crook of his arm. He twisted his head behind him, but whispered you to covertly over her shoulder. If it makes you feel better, we might be able to get back before she even knows. We should tell her. No, we should tell her. Let's just go. What do you want to do, Derek? They're your parents. No, I'm going to say we should tell her. Yeah. I'm going to be a good influence on Derek. If we're being forced to do this, then we're going to do this my way. Yeah. One sec. Derek dashed to the back room with all the bus schedules in his arms. He shoved them into something, then ran out to join you at the front of the condo with a bag swung over his shoulder. Next, he went into the kitchen to grab a notepad and pen from the counter. He hopped up on his tiptoes to lean over it and scribbled a few rows of explanation on the paper. He jabbed the button to retract the pen nib and with his thumb and set it down alongside the note.
Let's go.
Let's do it. I don't know. You're not giving me a choice, Derek. You're strong-arming me too, but okay. You scooped up your own backpack and the two of you locked the now empty apartment behind you. At the brisk pace, Derek led the way out of the condo complex and down the city sidewalks. You had to weave through crowds of people making their own way across town. Most of them were much older and taller than you were. Between the mass of strangers and the immense skyscrapers bearing down on you from all sides, you felt like a very small part of a far bigger world. You took Derek's hand. You held Derek's arm. Derek offered his hand to you. No, I'd take Derek's hand. He wrapped his own fingers around yours and held tight. That gave you the reassurance you hoped it would. You were in this together. You pushed forward until you reached the nearest bus stop. A group had already gathered in the same spot for the same purpose. Derek didn't fight to reach the front of the pack. He just kept to the fringes. You waited for anywhere from 5 minutes to 50 minutes. It was pretty impossible to track time accurately when you felt every single sluggish second hit you like a brick. No matter how long it actually was, it was enough time to think. A part of you had felt as though you couldn't possibly seriously get on a bus and go back to Sunset Bird without any of your parents. That just wouldn't happen. That was probably why you went along with Derek's impulse as quickly as the idea had struck him. No, the reason why I'm going with Derek's impulse is because the game is forcing us to. But reality hit you like a bus when an actual bus turned a corner and came your way. You gave Derek's hand another squeeze. He responded by tugging you a little bit closer to him. The massive vehicle hit its brakes and slowed to a halt. The doors opened to let out those who arrived at their destination and accept new riders. The crowd jostled together and filtered through and from the door. You and Derek went to the tail end of the group. You had enough change in your pocket to pay the fare. Derek flashed a bus pass for his entry. The city bus was as overflowing with people as the streets were. You had to shuffle while turned to your side to get through the aisle without knocking into the arms or legs of the other passengers. There was barely enough space to breathe. Humid summer days had never been more miserable. You couldn't even find seats that were side by side. Instead, you had to settle for 2 aisle seats that were across the way and 1 row diagonal from each other. That works. That meant you had to let go of Derek, which was the worst of it all. I agree. The automatic door creakily swung closed. You rocked as the wheels began to turn. You relaxed as best you could. You wanted it to move faster. I wanted to turn around, go back to Derek's house. You began to feel nauseous from everything. Despite what was going on, it was exciting to be there. You were scared. You were relaxed as best you could. You already committed to going along for the ride. I didn't. Derek didn't attempt to start a conversation. Not that he really could in the hectic space with the distance between you. He'd become completely focused on watching for your stop. He had a destination he needed to get you to, and he was going to do it no matter what. No matter how much I didn't really want to do it in the first place. More stops passed by until eventually Derek leaned his chest over the open space to send a quick message. His tone was breathy like a whisper, but way too loud to really be whispering. This is it. He shifted upright immediately and tugged the bell, marking this as a stop for the driver. Soon the bus came to a cautious halt along the edge of the curb. Once at a full stop, the doors popped open and you repeated the awkward shimmy through the aisle so you could exit. When your feet landed on the cracked ground, you exhaled in satisfaction. You've made it! This is really good. On Derek's first step into the station, he pulled one of the brochures out of his pocket and flipped it open. He must have kept that single pamphlet with the necessary details when packing the rest of the collection away. Derek was prepared as always. He held it up to his face, mapping out the station and using the guide like a treasure hunter. You wandered around the wide-open floor plan, searching up and down for the section where shuttles would load passengers. You were the first to spot the one vehicle headed towards a tiny tourist town. It made you stop in place. Derek. Yeah? At the sound of his name, he lifted his face up above the station map and saw what you saw. Oh. The shuttle was barely 1/4 the size of the bus. It was a glorified van. You only recognized it for what it was thanks to the unusual pale orange paint job and also the word shuttle painted in blue across the doors. He tucked the bus schedule pamphlet into his back pocket and gave you a thumbs up. Derek bought tickets at a nearby customer service counter. There was no humoring the possibility of you buying your own ticket or paying for both. That wasn't a hill to die on today. Then you were ready for another ride. You poked your head inside the cabin. Only a handful of other travelers were nestled between the 4 rows of seats. From the seat cushions to the smell, the shuttle was immensely more agreeable than the bus. You were able to get spots side by side this time. Derek, though, wasn't in any more of a mood to talk. The physical atmosphere might have improved, but the discomfort he felt on the inside was still eating at him. You could only sit in silence. For all the gnawing tension, you did make it. The shuttle inevitably came to its stop in a Sunset Bird parking lot. The car was switched off, and the driver gave permission for guests to leave. While the other riders leisurely shuffled around bags set by their feet and readjusted their hats, you and Derek hopped right off into freedom. Derek took a couple stumbling steps after his leap from the car, and then he stood in place. He watched for your next move, counting on your guidance to finish the journey. It was time to switch roles. Sunset Bird was your turf, not his. You spun in a single circle, scanning the area for clues as to which of the multiple big, flat, mostly empty parking lots you'd landed in. When you swung back around, you got a glimpse glimpse behind the shuttle and spotted the corner of the grocery store. You couldn't have been closer to home. We're almost there. This way. You waved your hand over your shoulder and raced towards the main street to rally your single troop for a charge.
Nice.
Awesome. Nice work, Hark. He made a break for it and launched across the blacktop. You ran with him. There was no time to lose. Derek was so fixated, he might accidentally leave you in the dust if you didn't push yourself. You flew out of the parking lot and dashed down the sidewalk you'd seen a million times before. From there, it was a turn to the residential area. Before you knew it, you'd arrived at the top of the hill on your street. You were so close. The decline of the road propelled your steps even faster. Derek almost crashed into you, and you both dove towards the entryway of your house. You caught yourself by bracing your hands against the front door. It took a second for you to separate your stinging palms from the wood so you could get your key out. But you got it in the lock, turned the key, and pulled. Finally, huffing and puffing, you stumbled inside. You were home. After everything, you almost didn't know what to expect when you laid your eyes on the scene. But it was your living room, exactly as it was every day of your life. Not a thing was out of place. The low hum of the fridge was the only sound. Elizabeth clearly hadn't torn the house apart in an emotional rampage, although you didn't know what her own room looked like. Hark! You snapped your head to the sound, and there she was, standing on the first step of the stairs, Elizabeth. Her mouth remained open, despite not saying anything else. An eyebrow was arched high on her forehead. Hi. Hi. Hi? Wait, is that why you're calling? To tell me you were coming back way early? No. You explained everything directly. You joked about the whole debacle. You awkwardly admitted what was going on. You casually broke down the situation. I would have been direct. There was no point in beating around the bush, not after how much you went through to do what you did. Me and Derek wanted to see if you were okay because you were alone here on Father's Day. She let out a single derisive bark of laughter, and more was threatening to spill out. It wasn't the worst reaction you could have gotten, all things considered. How did that even come up? The tip of Derek's foot scuffed at the wooden floor. Ma kept it sparkling clean. He meekly confessed his part in the debacle.
Well...
I wanted Hark to spend the night at my place so I could make sure he wasn't sad or something. That's what I was hoping for anyway, but it wasn't a great plan. He couldn't help sneaking a shy glance at you. Yeah, and then he somehow convinced me. That this was also catastrophic for Elizabeth, too. The mocking humor that colored her face was swiped away. In an absolutely deadpan way, she said 2 words.
Oh.
That's adorable. That was enough to end the conversation. Derek had no comeback, and your sister simply stared blankly. Was this a mistake? Should we not have come? Does that mean you're okay? Come on, how are you really doing, Elizabeth? You didn't speak either. Was this a mistake? Should we not have come? A seriously uncomfortable 3-way staring contest commenced. You kept your focus locked on your sister. She did the same to you. Derek flip-flopped between Elizabeth and you. Then Elizabeth caved. She pinched the bridge of her nose and groaned dramatically. Fine, you kids win. Today was annoying. Not because I care that I only get to have 2 moms and can't celebrate Daddy Day. It's because every year everybody else is busy and I'm stuck doing nothing. Okay, so it does kind of bother her. She only gets to have 2 moms. Only. I mean, there's a lot of kids who don't even have that, Elizabeth. But okay. Okay. And so no, I wasn't in a sunshine and rainbows kind of mood. It didn't help that you ended up getting off that boat either. And then you called me. She whipped an accusatory finger right at your chest.
Rude.
You'd gone off to have a party with your friend out of nowhere and decided while doing that to give me a ring while I was stuck in the house like a loser. Rude. Excuse me, sister. That is not how it turned out, you know. Excuse me. Excuse you. That's why I hung up. Her smirk returned, much more earnest than before. I didn't think you were going to race across the city to come keep me company. And that kind of affectionate teasing from your only older sister warmed your heart. It was special, and all the discomfort was worth it. It's not warming my heart at all. Elizabeth is not at all digging herself out of this hole right now. Not with me personally. Apparently, digital Hark is, but not this Hark. You already could tell today would be something to laugh about for years to come. Derek remained serious. He blinked in rapid succession and mustered up the will to continue with his regretful appeal. Elizabeth, I'm really sorry for not thinking about this more. Elizabeth cut that right off. She swished her hand in front of her face, trying to physically bat away Derek's sentiment.
No.
Don't be. Please, save your energy. She settled the tips of fingers against the center of her forehead, her other hand resting on her hip that she jutted out to the side. It's not your job to babysit me. It's not. It really isn't. You're not my big brother. Yeah, you're not. And I'm not the one you like. She's not. Elizabeth was as sassy as ever, and Derek's overly reflective maturity seemed childish when cast in that light. A dark red blush grew across Derek's cheeks, but he smiled. It was a good reminder that he demanded a lot more from himself than others did. As if for the first time your sister appraised you and Derek, huddled together, sweaty and frumpy from the journey. Oh dear, where are my manners? I guess I've got guests and haven't even offered them a drink. She shrugged one arm while sashaying over to the kitchen and opening the fridge. Not very politely, Elizabeth shouted out while sticking her head into the chilled shelves. What do you want?
Thanks.
Just water, please? Thanks. Water for me, too. Apple juice. I mean, I can get my own drink. I don't need her to give me a drink. Apple juice, orange juice, tropical juice mix, cola, lemon lime soda, root beer. Hello. Milk, soy milk. I don't want anything. You didn't speak up. Tropical juice mix. A water and tropical juice. She set up a bottle of water and a carton of tropical juice promptly on the counter, along with 2 glasses. Elizabeth poured a glass of juice for herself and filled a glass of tropical juice for you two. One more time, Elizabeth, the demure hostess she was, shouted at you from the kitchen. Come and get it! She punctuated the statement by bumping the fridge door shut with her hip. Then she walked back to the living room, taking a sip of her juice. Derek took it upon himself to pick up both of your drinks. He went straight to the kitchen, grabbed the drinks, and then returned to offer you yours. You accepted it from him. Thanks. It made your sister snicker over the rim of her glass. Her gaze stayed on you while she lowered herself down to sit on the floor. At the end of the day, all that matters really is that I got to spend time with Derek. That's really what matters. You shared a quick look with Derek, but ultimately joined your sister on the ground. The 3 of you arranged yourselves in a small circle shape, each with your little drink in hand. It almost felt like being a kid in kindergarten again. Elizabeth lifted her cup out over the center of the group.
Come on.
To this auspicious occasion, cheers to us. As sarcastic as her tone was, the fun she was having was genuine. Cheers to us. Happy Father's Day. Bad Father's Day. You teased. You lifted your dark ink. Bad Father's Day. Cheers. He thrusted his own drink out in celebration before bringing it back towards his chest. He twisted off the cap of the water bottle and gulped down about half of it in one go. Derek idly wiped at his mouth when Elizabeth asked a flat question. How did you actually get here? Is Mrs. Suarez idling in her minivan out there? Derek's reply was perfectly cheery. After the long way there, his spark was finally coming back. No, we took a bus. A bus? And a shuttle. None of the buses go right into Sunset Bird, but we made it. Well, obviously, you can see that. Okay, another question. Are you going to be completely grounded for this? We left a note for my mom. She'll understand. This was an emergency, or it could have been one. Huh. You're welcome. We were on a mission. You felt incredibly bashful. It's worth it no matter what happens. I'm just gonna shrug. Elizabeth rested her eyes shut and took another long sip of juice. I won't tell her moms. Thanks. We're all partners in crime. We should go now. Would you want to hang out for a little while? Let's make Father's Day cards. We're already here. I'm not gonna say we should go now. Because we're just going to turn around and come back. Derek has to come back home anyway. And even if I went back home with Derek, his mom's going to have to come all the way back here anyway to drop me off and all the way back. It just seemed, this whole plan just seemed really, unnecessary. I get that Elizabeth appreciates it. But did she really appreciate it that much? That it equaled to all of the effort we did to not only to inconvenience us, but also inconvenience Derek's parents. This is my biggest problem with this. Is she's grateful. I don't think she's so grateful about this gesture. Maybe she is. I could be wrong, but I don't know if we got the biggest bang for the buck that we paid for. We went out of our way, inconvenienced ourselves for what are you guys doing here? And now we're kind of inconveniencing his parents because, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of this was a little too much. Too much for you know, for the payoff just didn't feel like it was that big of a deal. Might as well make Father's Day cards for his dad. Might as well while we're here. Let's make Father's Day cards. What? We can still celebrate the holiday. I want to make our moms a card. That's a great idea, Hark.
Yeah.
I'll do it. The three of you ran around the house gathering supplies and dumping them on the living room floor. Stickers, markers, and stacks of construction paper were littered all around you. You added decorations and a message for your special Father's Day card.